Hey everybody, and welcome to the 6 in 6 podcast and video series. I'm Ben Kain, joined by Jacob Sandoval, and we've been checking out all of the high school teams here in Pueblo, Colorado, and our next one, the East Eagles.
Yes, sir, Ben, and we got to watch their game and call it even, and it was a good one to watch.
It was a great game against Roosevelt, week 1. Let's just say they made a statement. That's what Coach Watts said post-game. They made a statement.
For sure. We're looking at the score now. It was 47-8. That's a rough for the Roosevelt Rough Riders.
It was a blowout, and you know what? It really showed the strengths of East more than the weaknesses of Roosevelt. That was just a powerful showing against the number 6 team in 3A. So let's talk about last season before we get into this year. So last year they went 5-6. Then they lost to Erie in the first round. Erie took their run all the way to the championship game. So in that game, it was 22-21. It came down to a gutsy 2-point call by the Erie head coach. It was crazy.
It was a very exciting game, and it was just unfortunate that Erie was not able to continue to do so well and get that championship.
So let's talk about some of the key players on the team. First, Luke Andrada. He's kind of becoming that senior leader at this point.
Yeah, he's that guy who you can rely on him for basically everything, whether it's run, pass, or just leading people. That's the guy for you.
Absolutely. And then I am just stunned by the progress of Noah Rivera, a guy who really last year he made some waves as a linebacker, but this year he came out and ran really hard in week 1.
You're definitely right, Ben. And we were talking to Coach in an interview that you'll be able to see. He's talking about having multiple people in that running back position, but it looked like Noah Rivera was the one just pushing it down at Roosevelt's throats every single time.
It's a little weird to see Pat Gonzalez in a uniform, not Centennial as well. He's another key player. He switched over from Centennial to East this year and also switched positions from quarterback to running back.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that this quarterback who was leading a team was able to come down and be able to basically humble himself into the running back position and take less control of the team and just become a force that on the team. And he had a good showing last night.
Yeah, and you know what? The big guy on the team, Kain Madrano.
Oh, Kain Madrano has been killing it, and he will continue to kill it all season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Madrano, 6'4" wide receiver. He got quite a few carries last year, and then as a receiver had 9 touchdown catches. I expect that to double potentially this year.
Potentially, maybe even triple. We saw him play the Roosevelt game, and he was just open every single time, and they were trying to defend him with one guy, and that was not working at all.
Yeah, and then really a couple of my favorite players in the entire SCL is Sonny Sanchez and Dominic Robles, 2 guys maybe not the biggest guys on the field, but they are effort players. Those guys are all over the field on defense, and really, they're really becoming the heart of the East Eagle defense.
You're totally right there. During their game against Roosevelt, we saw them bring a linebacker every time. It was always Douglas or Sanchez who was trying to get that call, getting penetration on the offensive line and making plays.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and take it to the interviews we had with these players and coaches. So we'll start with Coach Watts. We also got Kain Madrano to get an interview and Luke Andrada. So a star-studded interview for this episode. Enjoy.
I'm here at Pueblo East High School with head coach Andy Watts. Now, you got up to a little bit of a slow start last season, losing the first 5 games. How do you plan on avoiding that slow start this season?
Just picking up where we left off. Obviously, even though we got bounced in the first round, lost by 1 point to Erie, who eventually made it to the state finals. So we just kind of build off our momentum and learn from those first 5 games.
Now that Sebastian Benavides is now graduated, who's going to be taking most of the carries for you this season?
We're going to have more of a running back by committee between Patrick Gonzalez, we have Noah Rivera, Frank Kushner, just to name 3 that are going to come in and share those reps.
Now, Kain Medrano usually lines up as a receiver, but last season he did have 196 rushing yards. Do you plan on using him in the backfield or on some jet sweeps at all?
Occasionally, yeah. Well, definitely. Any way we can get Kain the ball, we're going to do it.
And then who are some up-and-coming guys that we may not have heard of that you think are going to have a surprise season?
I think that Frank Kushner is going to have a good year for us on both sides of the ball. Obviously, Patrick Gonzalez, he's a new member of our team, so he's going to have a great year. Noah Rivera, you may not have seen him a whole lot last year, but he's going to be playing both sides of the ball. I think that those three guys come to mind.
And then your offensive line, how are they looking this season?
Looking good. There's going to be some new faces on the O-line, but they're gelling. Coach Keith Lane has them working really hard as usual, and I expect good things from them.
And then do you have a lot of guys that are playing on both sides of the ball this season?
This year we are going to have more one-way guys, I should say, than years past. We will still have a handful of guys that will play both sides of the ball, but this year we're blessed with a little bit of depth that's going to allow us to have offensive-only guys and defensive-only guys.
And then in the South Central League, you guys have been pretty successful for the past few years. However, now you got two new teams coming in from 4A. What do you think it looks like this season in the South Central League?
I think it's going to be a very competitive league. Durango is always going to be in the mix, and then with Centennial and South coming down, it makes things more interesting for sure.
And then you got Roosevelt, the first game of the season. Pretty competitive team in 3A last year. How do you scout them?
Just like we do everybody else, we're preparing one day at a time, and we're focused solely on August 24th. And we kind of know what they do. They know us. We beat them for our first state title. So I'm sure they're coming down here looking for a little revenge from a few years ago. We just kind of go into this game just like we do any other game and focus on the 4 quarters in front of us.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'm here with senior Kain Medrano. Now, Kain, you were awarded a scholarship to UCLA this summer.
Yes, sir.
What was your reaction to it?
It's definitely a blessing to a small kid out of Pueblo, Colorado, to go to a big city like LA, Westwood, California. It's kind of crazy. Definitely a kid's dream.
Now you still have your senior season to go. What are your personal goals for this?
My personal goals. I'm trying to lead our league in receiving yards and touchdowns from a wide receiver. Hopefully the classification, that'd be nice. Just with my team, I'm trying to try and go as far as we can. Win every game, take every game one step at a time. Not overlook teams, especially. So.
Now, who are some really tough teams you see on your schedule?
So we definitely start out with a tough opponent, Roosevelt. Then I think our next toughest game is definitely going to be Palmer Ridge. Not overlooking Longmont or anything, but Palmer Ridge is going to be a tough team. Our schedule is definitely set up nice, definitely really tough. So no game's going to be easy, that's for sure.
Now you've been on teams that have won state championships.
Sure.
What do you think it's going to take for this team to go all the way?
I think we're going to have to play as a team. We're going to have to utilize the pass and the run equally. We're not going to have to get down on each other. You're going to pick each other up. Just those small things that a good team would do. I think we're on the right track as of right now.
Now, walk me through the summer workouts a little bit. What have you been doing this summer with your team?
So we've been in the weight room a lot all summer, basically. Besides, right as soon as we got out of school, been in the weight room working out with mainly everybody that's out there right now. On the field work as it goes to just inviting some kids, kind of doing our own thing out here, not with no coaches, just doing some routes, working on some footwork. So it's definitely been a crazy summer with football.
Appreciate it, Kain.
Hey,
Best of luck this season.
Yes, sir.
I'm here with senior quarterback Luke Andrada here at Pueblo East High School. Now, Luke, walk me through what your summer workouts were like.
So my summer workouts this year, they were pretty intense. A lot more running than last. I'd have to say a lot more heavy lifting as well, and as well as functional training. So we worked in a lot of stretches, a lot of different movements that went with the main lifts we were doing. So I would say definitely a lot more, not just cardio, but sprints as far as just getting faster, and a lot heavier weightlifting and more functional training.
Now, what aspects of your game are you planning on improving on this season?
So I'm planning on improving my footwork in the pocket, especially when I'm getting blitzed and there's pressure all around me. You know, I'm working on that, staying patient, and delivering a good ball, as well as breaking the pocket and taking what's there for me when it is. You know, so that's also a good part of my game I want to improve on. And as far as passing goes, I want to, you know, work on obviously every single pass, because, you know, I could always use improvement there. Any quarterback could. So
Appreciate it, Luke.
thank
Best of
you.
luck.
And welcome back. And so we thank you again to Kain Medrano, to Luke Andrada, and to Coach Watts for interviewing with us. I mean, it's a real honor to interview those guys, and you know what? They did a great job.
Yeah, and when we have those kind of interviews, it puts so much into perspective on what these teams are actually thinking about, the process they're going through. And it's really exciting to see what these guys have on their mind and what they want to do for their team.
Absolutely. And you know, we heard Luke Andrada talk about working on his footwork, working on his ball location. Week 1, it was clear that was a focus. I mean, he did both of those fantastic.
Oh, yeah, like he was scrambling. He was able to get the throws off, even under a lot of pressure. It was great.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about questions for this year. So what kind of questions do you have for the Eagles? What do they need to fix this season?
Well, this season, I wonder, can Luke Andrada cut down on the turnovers? Last year, we saw him give away 6 passes. Yeah, or 16 turnovers via interceptions, and I believe 1 fumble.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't really have that when you're playing this upper level football, and it's going to be interesting to see if he's gotten better.
Absolutely, and early on it looks like he has, but it's something that is important because last year, especially against tough teams, he had trouble keeping a hold of the ball. So let's talk about the receiving corps. So with Marcus Winston and John Arona graduating, who is going to step up and be those options that kind of distract from Kain Madrano out there? And early on it looks like the answer is Marvin London and Joe Padula.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to say Marvin London for sure. Small guy, not like a 6'4" or 6'2" guy. He's just the small guy on the field that finds a way to get open every single time. And once he gets the ball in his hand, he's off to the races. He's juking, he's jiving, and he's just finding the sideline and getting down the field.
Juking and jiving. He had 3 catches last year. He had 3 touchdowns week 1. So that's pretty crazy.
It is crazy, and it's exciting because we didn't expect a whole lot of production from him. But, man, did he perform last night.
Absolutely. So now the other question I have is, will they be able to run the ball consistently? And admittedly, in week 1, they didn't really have to run the ball. They were passing it deep. And so now the question is, will they step up and run the ball against teams like a Pueblo West, like a South? Will they be able to run?
Yeah, and they're going to have to, Ben.
Yes.
Because the run game is essential in high school football and any type of football. You can't just sit there and pass because they're going to catch on. They're going to know who you're throwing to. They're going to figure out your routes. So having a run game is just as important as having a pass game.
So now let's take a quick look at the schedule that they have. So this is a tough schedule for East. They scheduled some very tough teams in their out-of-league play, as all of those teams in the out-of-league play made the playoffs last year. So we talked in our first 6-6 about County facing 7 playoff teams from last year. The same goes for East.
Yep, and we're looking at it, and their next game is going to be against Longmont, and then after that, they're going to ride to the top with Palmer Ridge. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in those games and how East is going to fight this adversity.
You see, Palmer Ridge is that team that I've been looking at the schedule. They went 14-0 last year. They ran the table regular season and then ran it all the way to a championship. So the question is, can East kind of break that streak? And the streak did get broken. Palmer Ridge actually lost week 1, but nonetheless, this is a very imposing squad.
Well, nonetheless, you're totally right, Ben, and it's just going to be exciting to see what these East players have to offer this season.
And then another game that obviously looms on the schedule is week 6 against South, the Cannon game. So what are some keys to beating the South Colts?
South Colts, I believe some of those keys are making sure you make the right calls when they're needed. When you're having, you're not sure what they're going to do, it's your side of the field. Whether or not you make the call to the players, that is, make the call to sit there and be safe in their defensive positions, or if they're going to go on the attack. And I sometimes, especially with the South team, when their offensive core is so big right now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
You know, I'm looking at they're going to need to get the ball to Kain Madrano quite a bit in creative positions, whether that's jet sweeps, that's screens, or those downfield launches that he's so good at catching, or slant passes. I mean, they need to get the ball in his hands 10, 15 times in the game, if you ask me, because he's the biggest playmaker on the field.
And that's the thing about Kain Medrano, is you got to find him so you can get him the ball, because he is that playmaker. He's that guy making the moves. And with him and Luke Andrada, they're basically unstoppable, what we saw from the Roosevelt game.
Absolutely. And then another key I have against South, they're going to need to run that hurry-up offense, because the South Colts are an inexperienced defense. So if they can come out, get that offense rolling, and kind of catch them off guard, because imagine, I mean, you know, a big 20-yard completion to Kain Madrano, the crowd's still reacting. Get your guys up there, call the next play. The Colts don't have any time to react. So that's going to be the keys for East.
You're definitely right there, Ben.
So let's take a quick look at their actual division. So in teams in that division, South, Centennial, County, Central, and Durango. So where do we rank East out of those 5?
After watching their performance, I'm going to have to give them number 1 spot right now.
Wow. I'm with you.
Yeah, they are an exciting team to watch, and they performed really, really well. Not even on the offensive side, including the defensive side. We didn't even talk about how their defensive line was just drilling those offensive linemen and getting them out of the way so their backfield can clean up.
Absolutely. I am with you. I think East is number 1. And the Eagle Empire is back full force this year. 3 championships in a row. Last year took a step back. This year, the Eagles are back, and they're back with a vengeance. I think the East is the best in the SCL. So we'd like to say thank you to the East High School Athletic Department, to the High School Activities Association here in Colorado. And, you know, it's been a lot of fun putting together the East one. We'd like to thank Luke Andrada, Kain Madrano, Coach Watts again for interviewing. And we'd like to say thank you for some people who helped us out. That's Blake Lauder, for James Bartolo, Jacob Cisneros-Baca, and for myself, Ben Kaysen, and Jacob Sandoval. It's been a great time. The Eagle Empire may be back. We're going to talk about some other teams. Next, we're going to be talking about those South Colts here on 6 and 6.